Hi everyone, this is Alexandra Lech and I'm going to make a 1 hour long video on Mars, the position of planet Mars in your birth chart, in your natal chart. As you know, the moment when you are born, we can create so-called astrological natal chart, birth chart, that shows how every planet has been positioned in relation to the Earth at the moment when you took first breath into your lungs, and also at a certain geographical position. And also we can see what sign was rising at the time of your birth, which creates so-called ascendant. So we all have a birth chart, okay? We all have a circle, let's say a circle that shows in relation to the Earth, with the planet Earth in the middle where you were born, positions of all the planets at the moment when you were born. So based on this, we can say that your natal sun is in Capricorn, Aquarius, Scorpio, Gemini, whatever it is, which usually means, oh, you are this sign. This is very superficial, very single layered interpretation, but that's what the position of the sun means. But also we can have a look where your moon fell, which will describe much more of your personality and how you come across when people meet you for the first time. This is your moon, this is not your sun sign. That's why very often I think we may hear that, oh yes, she's a Cancer, he's a Cancer too, but they are so different. Astrology doesn't work. It's obviously not astrology, it's just a very superficial 1% of astrology, and its meaning, the symbolism of certain signs. But yes, absolutely. One person that is born within the month of, the astrological month of Cancer will be very different to another person being also a Cancer, because their moons are in different positions, different signs, their Venus, Mercury, Mars, other planets, they have different rising signs, in other words, ascendant. And also these planets create different combination, meaning aspects between them. So we are all absolutely different, even if the sun was at the same sun sign at the moment of our birth, okay? So when we combine all these elements, we get a fuller picture of the person, of their character, personality, inclinations, strengths, weaknesses, what kind of people they attract, what challenges they may face in life, what lessons they have to learn throughout the course of their life, what energy they disseminate among others, how they come across, etc., etc. So there's it's a very multi-layered interpretation of our birth chart. But obviously, we have to step by step, initially at the first stage of the interpretation, we have to break it down into these little elements. Oh, your sun is here, your moon is here, and this is what it means. Your Venus is here, and this is what it means, etc. So we break it down first, and then we can combine all the symbolism of these planets and signs, but also aspects, and then we get a picture of the person, who they are. So today I want to focus on the planet Mars, because since you know that we are not all easily divided into certain groups based just on the sun sign. You may, for example, Mars as such represents fire, adrenaline, being combative. It's about our, drive, strength to push through in life, motivation, etc. So you may have your sun, for example, maybe in Pisces, meaning, you are very sensitive, imaginative, very receptive, sometimes passive, very much in your secret world. Your boundaries are easily kind of like dissolved. But if your Mars falls in Scorpio at the same time, you will very much know how to assert yourself, how to stand up for yourself, how to fight for what you believe. So all these combinations create very different types of Pisces, okay? Because when your Mars falls in Pisces as well, just like your Sun, then you will become much more passive, and your boundaries, will get diluted very much. And when you take action, it may be a very kind of like weak action, or you will not show a lot of drive. So there are many different combinations how we can interpret, all these elements. But today, let's strip it down, specifically into what Mars, the Martian energy, in different signs, how it is realized, how it's getting, you know, manifested, realized in our charts, and what these specific elements mean. So did I want to say anything else? Oh yes, I did this video on Venus, natal Venus in every 12 sign, in all the 12 signs recently. Thank you so much for watching it, and for your comments and likes, and for all the messages suggesting that we should do the same with other planets. So that's why I'm doing the Mars video today. We all have Mars somewhere in our chart. Let me first maybe describe what Mars energy symbolizes on a general level in our chart. I will support this video and what I'm talking about with a lot of different sources, you know, a lot of different sources that I'm using. Books, articles, some materials from my study, Faculty of Astrological Studies, etc, etc. So I will list all the sources underneath the video. I will be reading some bits, I will be talking about some bits. Please bear with me. If you have any questions, you can either comment underneath, or you can contact me directly. I'm always open to respond and have a chat. So the planet Mars. What does Mars you know, symbolize, and what do we know about Mars? Mars's orbit is further from the Sun than it is you know, from the Earth. Which means that it falls beyond Earth's orbit. This, from astronomical point of view, means that regardless of where your sun sign is, your Mars may fall in any of the 12 signs. For example, with Mercury and Venus, they are on the inside orbit of the Earth, so they are between the Sun and the Earth. You've got Mercury and Mars. So Mercury and Mars are in much closer proximity to the Earth. They can never be, you know, away at a certain amount of degrees. So you may have your Sun, for example, in Pisces, but Mercury and Venus will always be in one or two signs on the other side of the Pisces, right? If your Sun is in Gemini, the same will happen with Mercury and Venus. If your Sun is in Gemini, meaning that Mercury and Venus can only be in, let's say, you know, Gemini, Cancer, potentially Leo, or the other way, they can be in Taurus, or, you know, the sign before being Aries, and never further away. But because Mars orbits the Sun on the outside from the Earth, it can technically be in any sign, while your Sun falls in any sign as well. So we have many more combinations here. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, forget about it and just focus on the astrological expression of what this is all about. So as I said, we all have Mars in our chart. We won't get away from Mars. Mars is very helpful. It gives us force, you know, life force, drive, motivation. It shows how we take action, how we fight for what we believe. It shows the strength of character. It's very much associated with adrenaline and anger as well, the same as like outbreaks, sudden outbreaks. But let me, you know, read through deeper symbolism of Mars and what it actually shows in our chart. As I said, we all have Mars in our chart, so Mars can you know, it can be in different house of your chart, it may fall in different sign, it may have different aspects in between planets, so this will color this energy of Mars. Mars, the planet, symbolizes what, you know, what energy, what kind of forces we are dealing with, and its placement in a certain sign and house in our chart and aspects between planets show how it is getting manifested and realized in our lives, okay? So, first of all, let's see what actually Mars is. So in astrology, Mars symbolizes courage and daring, our ability to fight and assert ourselves, competition and survival, action, energy, vitality, sexual and creative energy, our ability to express anger and manage conflict, our driving force and fighting spirit. Astronomically, Mars is known as the red planet and is the first of the superior planets lying outside of the orbit of the Earth, as I mentioned before. So In the personal birth chart, Mars is the principle of assertion and self-willed action. Now, in contrast to Venus, that I have talked about in the previous video, Mars shows how and where we are prepared to fight and what principles or activities inspire us to competition. We might fight and compete in a number of different ways, for instance, through sport, through career, in close relationships with siblings, or on intellectual level. Mars symbolizes the primal survival instinct. In times of conflict with others, it is our Mars function which gives us the courage to defend our own territory. So regardless of your sun sign, whether you are a delicate Pisces or a sensitive Cancer or a fiery Leo, the position of Mars will actually show how you assert yourself and how you manage conflict and how you approach competition. Okay, in mundane astrology, Mars relates to war, any kind of military governments and the armed forces, riots and rebellions, as well as the weapons that are used in military conflicts such as guns, knives, tanks, missiles, and so on. The key words for the placement of Mars in our chart would be action, courage, daring, drive, will, assertion, energy, sexuality. As with every astrological symbol, we obviously have positive expressions and negative expressions of every single planet. So negative expression, if it's rubbed in the wrong way, of Mars, we can get positive. So positive expression would be being assertive, energetic, sporty, enthusiastic, focused, competitive, courageous, heroic even, able to survive and endure, strong endurance. Negative expressions of Mars would be being aggressive, threatening, always fighting, passive even, unable to fight, depending on the placement of Mars, inappropriately angry if you have too much Mars in your chart, too strong Mars, because we only have one planet of Mars in our chart, frustrated, hot-headed, impatient. So every planet obviously can be used to our advantage or disadvantage, depending how we approach its energy. But it is really important to strip it down, to have a look at your whole chart, to see how you can realize every single expression, every single energy of every planet in your chart. But when we just focus on Mars, I think I will just go through, just like I did with Venus, I will go through specific 12 specific signs, and we will have a look at placements of Mars in every sign. Okay. Right, as I said, Mars can fall in any of the 12 signs of the zodiac, irrespective of sun sign, because the orbit of Mars lies outside of the orbit of Earth. Mars and the sign it falls in represents our energy and the way we use it, our sex drive. It has an influence on the red blood cells and the adrenal glands, adrenaline. Sometimes it provokes minor cuts and burns. It's very much like hot-headed, sudden action behavior. When Mars gets activated in our chart, this is, let's say, when we have a specific transit to Mars in our chart, or Mars is transiting something, it's a personal point in our chart. It may be a moment when we are prone to some little accidents, we stumble, we walk into something, or we cut ourselves. This is all Mars, okay? Sudden, sharp energy. But also it rules aggression and heat, both physical heat and the heat of anger, because it rules adrenaline in our charts as well. People whom astrologers would describe as having strong Mars usually have the qualities of pioneers and leaders and an urge to defend the weak. So how does Mars in every single sign realizes itself? When you have Mars in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, Mars rules two signs, the rulership. It has rulership of Aries and Scorpio. So the placement of Mars in Aries and Scorpio is said to be the strongest, okay? This is where Mars is in its domicile. So Mars is at its most powerful when in Aries, because this is the sign it rules. Here we have someone who has very high level of physical energy and needs plenty of outlets. Mars is very much about sport as well, physical movement. In areas, the fiery areas, the spontaneous kind of, I don't want to say provocative, but spontaneous, outgoing, enthusiastic. That's what I want to say. Enthusiastic areas, jumping into action without thinking. Mars feels really good here, but it can be very much willful, forceful, selfish sometimes, energetic, pioneering, courageous, but also it's very much, it's not very much calculated, but it's super spontaneous. So when your Mars falls in Aries, you will be great at competition, sports, jumping into action, showing your, your self kind of like willfulness and inner drive, to a great extent by spontaneity and like fast moving energy, but you will not very much calculate your actions. You will first speak or jump into something without thinking rather than pre-plan it. Okay, so the idea of Aries is about pioneering energies, as I said, energetic, self-motivated, showing enthusiasm, initiative, drive, action. Mars very much similar in symbolism to Aries because it rules it. Will give somebody that acts in this way. Okay, people with this placement, Mars in Aries, should always be aware that in their need to push forward, they may tend not to listen to other people's opinions as carefully as they might. It is vitally important for those with this placement to have some physically demanding interest, because their energy must not be allowed to stagnate. Sports of any kind, or perhaps work with youth clubs in their spare time, would be excellent for them. There will be no lack of enthusiasm, a considerable help to many who perhaps have a somewhat unassertive sun, moon, or rising sign. And it is a really good point, because if you have some weaker placements of other planets and not much energy is shown in your chart, Mars in Aries will support it enormously. So that's the first one. When we move on to Taurus, the second sign of the zodiac. So the archetype of Taurus energy is about being patient, practical, persistent, slow moving. There's no rush. There's certain stubbornness, very grounded energy, very sensual, unimaginative, somewhat possessive and self-indulging. Sorry, Taurus. When we throw Mars into the sign of Taurus, what is said about Mars in Taurus is that these people, because as I said, we all have Mars in our chart, so we will of course somehow get angry in our lives. We will react, we will defend, we will drive action, etc. Some people more often than others, and in more courageous way than others. But in Taurus, when someone has Mars in Taurus, these are people that are very, it's very difficult to make them angry or to make them show anger. They are very slow to anger, just like Mars in Aries would be quick to anger, spontaneous, rush decisions, it's this enthusiasm, spontaneity, not really thinking, but jumping into action. With Mars in Taurus, we have a very different story, because people with Mars in Taurus don't really get easily provoked, but also so it takes a lot of time to make them angry. They may be like kind of rock solid, slow energy and very patient energy, but once you make them angry and their anger is huge, okay, but it takes a lot of time to allow themselves to get provoked. So the Mars in Taurus, the energy flow is usually controlled and steady, but when the individual is roused to anger, there will be a considerable show of temper. Although this will not emerge very often, when it does, the individual will certainly make an impact. There will be no lack of steady persistence of effort, and generally there is the ability to plod steadily towards the achievement of objectives. The pace will not be rushed, because the chances are that those with Mars in Taurus will know that forcing issues or working in fits and starts doesn't suit them. Considerable stubbornness is often present, and the liking for routine can become almost obsessional. Physical activities requiring control of the body and a careful assessment of each movement will be rewarding, and the powers of endurance should be excellent. Speed of action is not a strong point, and the body's metabolism might be slow, which is true. I have met a lot of customers, of people that I worked with Mars in Taurus, that somehow I would say they like to gain weight, or weight suits them. They feel comfortable with excessive weight, let's say. When we move on to Mars in Gemini, the third sign is Gemini. The archetype of Gemini, as you probably know, it's very much about being intellectual, rational. It's about sociable energies, diverse, quick-witted, unpredictable sometimes, superficial, but it's all about interactive communication energies. When we have Mars thrown in the sign of Gemini, it gives a very lively mood. It gives a very lively, superficial, even scattered touch to the Mars energies, but it's also multi-layered, which is great. So these are people that may have many different interests, jump from one thing to another, show interest, take action in many different areas of activity, and they don't get bored, or they don't have to be super focused on one thing, but they like to surround themselves with a lot of energetic kind of Martian energy, jumping from one thing to another. Here Mars is in lively but somewhat restless mood. There is often a tendency to fritter away energy, and a conscious awareness that this can happen is an advantage. If the individual has a good sense of purpose and is ambitious, there should be a few problems. There will also be emphasis on intellectual energy, so interest will need to incorporate this kind of challenge. Sporting and physical activities that also require mental alertness will suit those with this placing. A lively, assertive attitude will be taken in argument and debate, and there will be no lack of things to say on any occasion. Here, too, there is often more than a hint of Geminian duality, and it should be accepted and developed as versatility. Those with Mars in this sign, in Gemini, are not terribly patient unless the Sun, Moon, and Rising sign contribute this quality in force. Boredom can therefore catch up with them very easily. Obviously, the expression of versatility and a change of scene and occupation will be a superb counterbalance to this. So Mars in Gemini needs distraction. They need constant stimulation, and yes, very good point, is obviously very much focused on intellectual energy, rational, communication-based intellectual energy. Okay, so this was Gemini. When we move on to the fourth sign of the zodiac, Cancer. Let's have a look at Cancer. So the qualities of Cancer, the archetype of Cancer that we can, let's say, list, typical archetype of Cancerian energy is being receptive, caring, sensitive, nurturing, supportive, imaginative, sometimes moody and neurotic as well. As we know, every sign and every planet has positive and negative expressions. So when we put Mars in Cancer, it's quite an interesting placement here actually, because it gives this vibe of some kind of slowness and passive energy. Mars in Cancer is not very obvious. These people don't really jump in with force, okay? It's a water sign, so it will be slow, and just similar to Taurus being an earth sign, these people will not show anger straight away, readily, like with fire signs. They will be slow to show anger, okay? So here in Cancer, Mars picks up the tenacity of Cancer, so that a terrific effort is made to achieve whatever is important to the individual. There is also a strong combination of the forces of emotional and physical energy once the initial motivation is sparked off. There is, however, a tendency to burn energy unevenly, and while periods of laziness are unlikely, there is a temptation to overdo things when the individual feels that he or she is under any kind of pressure. Tension can result, leading to an inability to relax. This is a marvelously sensuous placing for Mars, and the expression and enjoyment of love life is usually extremely colorful. Also, a sensitive and intuitive quality gives an instinctive realization of the partner's needs. The accident-prone side of Mars is only likely to emerge when the individual is over-concerned with other people, typical of Cancer, and not giving enough attention to personal safety. Interesting. When we move on to Leo, the fifth sign, the archetype of Leo it's all about being grand, playful, dramatic, fiery, creative, generous, confident, authoritative, arrogant, self-centered, and attention-seeking as well. But Mars is really well placed in Leo as well, because here, the fiery, spontaneous, outgoing energy, action-driven energy of Mars can really get beautifully realized in strong, confident, seeking drama and attention Leo sign. So Mars in Leo, actually, I know a lot of people with Mars in Leo, and I have to say that these are the most confident people I have ever met. Regardless of other placements of their planets, Mars in Leo gives you this unbreakable confidence of being able to achieve anything, being able to push through anything, not taking no for an answer. I get what I want, I just reach out and get it, even if your sun falls in weaker signs, okay? But Mars in Leo is said to be the most confident placement, like literally. It's amazing. It's amazing what people with Mars in Leo can achieve, what they can do, and as I said, they take no for an answer. So when I look at this source, which is Julia Parker's Astrologer's Handbook, what she says about Mars placement in Leo, she says that the showing off tendencies of Leo will be energetically expressed when Mars is in this sign. The individual will spend a great deal of enthusiasm and energy on making their presence felt, but will also have the happy knack of getting other people to do things. Here we have a team leader, someone who has abundant energy, who's very confident, pioneering. They will work hard, very hard, and the creative side of Leo will probably emerge. So spare time activities may be directed towards amateur theatricals, drama-oriented activities. This is a good placing for Mars as far as the career is concerned, because here is the energy force second to none, and irrespective of Sun, Moon and Ascended placement, awareness that a great deal can be achieved through the strength of this planet will be of enormous help to even the most shy person. Extroverts with this Mars sign must be aware that they can be somewhat bombastic and dogmatic at times. There is certain exuberance about this placement, because it will bring beautiful counterbalance to people with some weaker, more passive or more shy placements of other planets. But if you already have a lot of fire or a lot of courage in your chart, Mars in Leo will make you even more daring, unstoppable, exuberant. So it is an amazing placement, but as I said, I've noticed that it gives, first of all, the biggest deal of confidence to anybody, regardless of other placements. So moving on to the sixth sign of the zodiac, which is Virgo. Virgo energy is really interesting. I mean, altogether it is interesting to me, because it's about the purpose of Virgo energy is to create order out of chaos. It's to sort and analyze, to separate wheat from chaff. It's about ensuring that all things remain productive and useful. So in a sense, it's like analyzing, discriminating, showing attention to detail energy of Virgo clashes with the expression of Mars, the fiery, assertive, enthusiastic, self-driven Mars. So how do we fit these energies? How do we combine these two energies? Virgo archetype as such adjusts to necessity and is concerned with the development of technique, skill, and craft. The negative polarity lends an inwardly oriented feel to planets in this sign, as well as the grounding and practicality of Earth and the adaptability of the mutable sign, Virgo. So, as I said, we all have Mars in our chart, so obviously, even though this pure symbolism of Mars doesn't necessarily go in line very, perfectly with the symbolism of Virgo, it still obviously will manifest itself somehow. It just shows the manner, the Virgo manner, through which we actually express the fiery, action-driven energy of Mars in our chart. So the keywords for Virgo would be perfectionist, methodical, practical, efficient, modest, precise, helpful. This is all about Virgo. So when we put Mars in Virgo, also my private observation is that people with Mars in Virgo are people that have put a lot of effort, a lot of their life force into organizing things, putting things in order. People that I know with Mars in Virgo are people that have perfect order, let's say in their bedrooms or in their wardrobes or in their, garage, like my husband, for example. Every single tool has its place, and maybe millions of them, but they all have their place, and he knows where they are. It's like great attention to detail, great determination, and very methodical action. It's like putting the drive and the will and the kind of like action of the Mars, realizing it in a very methodical, orderly manner. Also, people with Mars in Virgo, they tend to over worry or are moody quite often. They show they like to complain. Mars in Virgo, there is a high level of intense nervous energy when Mars is in Virgo. It can cause considerable inner tension and can be the root of bad headaches and migraine. Therefore, while it will not be easy, it is essential that the person, if they suffer in this way, they should learn some relaxation techniques. Yoga is particularly beneficial, as the exercises can be both calming and restorative, but are physically demanding as well. Fresh air, long country walks, cycling, etc., being in nature, generally speaking. But Mars in this sign adds a critical and discriminating tendency to the expression and fulfillment of love as well. It's very ordered, okay? It very much obviously depends on other placements of your chart, of placements of other planets in your chart, but Mars in Virgo is, as I said, very much like, down to earth, practical, orderly. These are people that will collect things, that will, one of my daughters also has Mars in Virgo. She loves collecting miniature things, little things, like collections of tiny little, whatever. It's like, you need to have patience for it, okay? You need to have attention to detail and great patience to deal with things like that. So this is Mars in Virgo. Very practical, beautiful. Now moving on to Libra, the seventh sign of the zodiac belt, Libra. The archetype of Libra energy, this is the search for balance and harmony, for partnership, relationship. It's very diplomatic, creative, balanced. So, for example, whereas Aries fights single-handedly, Libra must fight against an opponent which represents a part of one's own inner nature projected out, in an effort to find the point of balance between extremes. As an air sign, it is concerned with social interaction, showing initiative and strong action in such areas. And as a positive sign, we sometimes, make reference to positive and negative signs only, meaning it's like minus or plus in terms of its expression. It's not a positive and negative as such. It is essentially outgoing. Planets in Libra will be actively expressed in generally extroverted ways. The same with Mars, of course. So Libra requires peaceful surroundings. It's very artistic, aesthetically aware. cooperative, working for unity and harmony, loving, balanced, sociable, peace-loving, gracious, sometimes indecisive and over-compromising. So when we look at Mars, the planet Mars in the sign of Libra, what can we expect? Mars is in a terribly languid mood when in Libra. So from the point of view of injecting the individual with energy, it is not at its best, okay? Libra seeks balance and peace, and it's kind of like sometimes very much indecisive, as I said. It doesn't really go very well with the symbolism of Mars as such, but you know, it has to be somehow expressed in this sign as well. The mind might be willing, but the flesh is weak. That's Mars in Libra. It's like, I want to do something, but I feel a little bit lazy, or I don't really want to do it. I need extra motivation to do it. So it's quite slow. But it is also great because it doesn't infuse you with like massive waves of anger, you know, when you get angry, okay? So there could be a certain amount of procrastination, although the strength and determination of the sun, moon, and rising sign will do a great deal to counterbalance the relaxing influence of Mars in Libra. People that may not necessarily be quick to anger or very driven in their action with this placement, but potentially other planets in different signs and different aspects between them may compensate for this lack of strong drive. The enjoyment of love life is much in evidence, and once motivated, those who have this placement can achieve a great deal, especially if they find they are gaining praise and the appreciation of their efforts from other people, which is important to them. It is easy to please people with Mars in Libra by paying compliments to them. Here the aggression of Mars is toned down a little. But conversely, there is a side to this zodiac group which will provoke a good row and enjoy every minute of it, because Libra is an air sign, so it is very much intellectual expression. The need for a permanent relationship is strong, and Mars in this sign will work hard to achieve a meaningful relationship. Right, when we move on to Mars in Scorpio, this one is very interesting because, as I said at the beginning, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio as well. So looking at Scorpio energy, Mars will feel at home. It is in domicile in Scorpio. It rules the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio as such is uncompromising, willful, strong, intense, secretive, defensive, radical, externally tough, but emotionally vulnerable. It has the desire to experience the ultimate depth of experience, sharing at a very deep level, intense personal attachments and emotional involvements, resourceful, intuitive, insightful, determined, loyal, passionate, private, sensitive, powerful, jealous, secretive, unforgiving, and overbearing sometimes as well. Process of transformation and the cyclical nature of life, they act with intensity and are expressed with both powerfully and secretively. Scorpio belongs to the negative polarity, so planets here will act in a more introverted fashion, as well as displaying the immovable qualities of fixity and the emotional expression of water. This sign lends itself to extreme modes of behavior, but on the one hand, great staying power, fixity, and strength of will, and on the other hand, a periodic desire for complete change, which is often brought about through deep crisis. It opposes the sign of Taurus, sharing with it the ideas of possession, attachment, and desire, but showing it in emotional rather than material terms. Taurus will express it through material, tangible values. Scorpio will express the possession, attachment, and desire through emotional qualities. So Mars being in domicile in Scorpio, what does it give the the person that has this placement? By tradition, Mars rules Scorpio, so the planet's influence when placed in this sign is extremely powerful. Here we have someone with a very high level of emotional and physical strength, energy level, which needs careful consideration and direction. These forces need to be expressed powerfully and positively in the career or the daily work, whatever it might be, and equally need less complicated but essential channeling through some sports or physically oriented activity. There is a terrific sense of purpose and determination in those who have their Mars placed in Scorpio. Intensity, intuition of Scorpio are also present to some extent. The forces of Mars in this sign need a rewarding and fulfilling love life, and considerable demands may be made on partners. They should be aware that this is they should be aware that this is so, and should use other planets' influences to help counterbalance the tendency to jealousy. Mars in Scorpio placement is, from my experience, from my observation, is a very strong driving force for people to achieve success. You know, these are people who are just like Mars in Leo. Really, it's very very similar. Both Leo and Scorpio are fixed signs, right? So they give this like staying power, this perseverance, determination, but also a great deal of courage, just like Leo, the same with Scorpio. We have a great deal of courage and going for what we want. It's determination, it's the kind of touch of drama, emotional intensity or dramatic intensity, depending on whether you're in Leo or Scorpio, your Mars is placed. But people with Mars in Scorpio, from my own observation, are those people that will always achieve greatly in their careers because of their determination. They don't give up, they push for what they want, they reach out and they achieve what they want. Okay, so it's a great, great placement of Mars. Now, when we move on to the next sign, and the 9th sign of the zodiac, which is Sagittarius. Sagittarius energy. Sagittarius energy loves adventure and travel. This is also a very fiery sign. Okay, so Mars is placed very well in this sign as well. It loves adventure, travel, anything to do with open spaces and love of freedom. Positive nature will lend it outgoing tendencies with all the drama, impulsiveness, and exuberance of fire, but also the restlessness of mutability. It's a mutable sign. Planets in Sagittarius desire a broad space in which to function and express their energies, allowing expansion, growth and development to take place. What might be seen as a capacity for casualness and generalization might also be seen as a desire for constant forward motion and constant new experiences, and an ability to see the bigger picture and sense the wider meaning of things. Sagittarius has a naturally philosophical outlook on life and is associated with learning, education, philosophy and religion, and all those things which allow us to expand our horizons and place ourselves in the wider context of life. It opposes Gemini in the zodiac, sharing with it an affinity with knowledge, teaching, learning and understanding, as well as travel and journeying in any sense, whereas Gemini represents short-range travel, primary learning and the discovery of facts and information. The opposing Sagittarius is concerned with longer journeys, both literal and metaphorical, and with covering large areas of ground, as well as the development of wisdom through an appreciation of meaning and higher octave of intellectual energies. So, yes, sometimes these descriptions touch on the opposing expressions. You know, every sign will have its opposing sign. So obviously with Aries is opposed by Libra, and these signs always share something as well, even though they're opposing themselves. So we have Aries opposing Libra, we have Taurus opposing Scorpio, we have Gemini opposing Sagittarius, Cancer opposing Capricorn, we have Leo opposing Aquarius, and we have Virgo opposing Pisces. I think I've listed them all. So when we look at Mars in Sagittarius, what can we expect? The optimistic, adventurous, outgoing, freedom-loving, honest and philosophical, enthusiastic nature of Sagittarius will be beautifully expressed in, through Mars placement there. There will be a need for challenge, especially the sort of challenge that makes demands on physical energy. Here is an ideal placement for ambitious sportsmen and women who will forever want to improve their personal best records. They do need, however, to be careful not to try to be too versatile. In the desire to experiment in new and different fields, they might miss out on becoming as perfect as they could be in some rather smaller area of interest. The intellectual energy level is high too, and again, challenge is important. In both cases, there will be plenty of will to succeed and an equal desire to enjoy all aspects of life. There is a natural infectious enthusiasm and a somewhat bright and breezy attitude. While the love appetite is considerable, this sphere of life must be great fun. Outgoing, enthusiastic, spontaneous Sagittarius, I think Mars feels great in this sign. When we move on to the sign number 10, the 10th sign on the zodiac belt, being Capricorn, when we think about the symbolism of Capricorn and try to combine it with the symbolism of Mars, what can we come up with? So Capricorn as such, this is self-sufficiency and independence. It's very guarded energy. Its negative polarity tends it towards self-reflective rather than extroverted expression. It is also given to directed action, being a cardinal sign. Coupled with its earthy nature, it can show material and worldly ambition. This is a slow-moving, secret, kind of quiet, a little bit behind the scenes or non-obvious, strong determination and ambition of Capricorn. Beautiful placement, actually. Planets in Capricorn work well in the real world. It's all about the earth, tangible matters, showing practical and pragmatic expression. They are generally controlled, cautious and steady, and interested in reaping the rewards only as a result of hard work and effort. We associate Capricorn with targets, productivity, professionalism, and a desire for status, position, and respect. Capricorn opposes Cancer in the zodiac, as we know. Both imply a need for tradition, history, and a conservative and cautious outlook. But whereas Cancer needs and creates emotional attachment and involvement, and is associated with home, clan, family, roots, Capricorn, on the other side, is worldly, associated with career, status, work, and social position, social image. So the archetype of Capricorn energy would be reserved, conservative, traditional, mature, well organized, showing mastery and authority, managing, controlling, patient, serious, ambitious, strategic, guarded, as I said, calculating, or sometimes even ruthless. But Mars in Capricorn can be very sharp, focused, straight to the point. I think it's a very helpful placement, actually, depending obviously on other planets, but altogether Mars in Capricorn. So Mars is by tradition well placed in this sign. Its energy is controlled and disciplined, and it denotes considerable ambition and the will to achieve a great deal. But Mars is in a somewhat chilly mood. This placing, for example, does not do much to enhance the love life and passion or warm the emotions, but a driving force is present, and those with Mars in Capricorn have some formidable resources to fall back on, especially when they experience difficult conditions. These people will cope well with a lonely and powerful position, since inwardly they will know that they are in such a position because of their determination to get to the top. Here too is someone who will have what it takes to build up a business, if the motivation coming from the Sun and the rising sign is sympathetic to that kind of self-expression. So yes, quiet, but very strong, very determined. Beautiful placement of Mars, I think. Now, I think we have two more signs left. We have Aquarius, which is the 11th sign in the zodiac, and we have Pisces, which is the 12th sign of the zodiac. Let's see what we can expect when we have Mars placed in these two signs. So the archetype of Aquarius. Here we have importance of community and the collective social fabric. It is associated with the humanitarian impulse and with equality, parity and fairness between all human beings. Its positive polarity inclines it towards externalized expression. So we have positive or negative polarity, as I touched on before. Negative polarity would be such signs as negative polarity is all the water signs and all the earth signs. Okay, so negative polarity is Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. So these signs as such, in its purest form, are introverted. The positive polarity, which is the fire signs and the air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, but also Leo, Aries and Sagittarius, these signs have positive polarity, meaning that they are more extroverted and outgoing. So Aquarius is one of the positive polarity signs, and this inclines it towards externalized expression, and its airy nature suggests the importance of social links and networks, as well as the mental and intellectual level of existence. Being fixed, Aquarius can tend towards attachment or rigidity, as well as having staying power, sense of continuity, determination, perseverance. Again, we can divide all the signs into fixed, cardinal and mutable signs. Fixed signs are Scorpio, the opposing sign of Taurus, and the squaring signs of Aquarius and Leo. These four signs are fixed signs, meaning that they have the biggest power of retention, continuity, fixity, meaning stable energies. So when something needs to be pushed through and continued, worked on, where you have to show some kind of patience, perseverance, even stubbornness, these signs, archetypes of these four signs have it. Okay, so this is fixity. They are fixed signs. These four signs are fixed. So Aquarius being one of them. Both, actually it says being fixed, Aquarius can tend towards attachment, rigidity, as well as having staying power, continuity, determination. So Aquarius is opposite to Leo in the zodiac, and they both have pride, fixity, and certain unconventional touch in common. They are linked to ideas of friendship and to humanistic philosophy of life. However, Leo is much more self-oriented, with a need to demonstrate uniqueness and individuality. Aquarius is oriented towards the group or collective concerns. As you can see, all these opposing signs, they have similarities, but also one important element that actually distinguishes them from each other. So the paradox with Aquarius is the desire, also present, to be inventive and creative, first amongst equals. Planets in Aquarius will act with openness, honesty, and a sense of innovation and eccentricity. Freedom is also a key issue for Aquarius. So the keywords we could use for the expression of Aquarian energy is friendly, amicable, sociable, innovative, original, independent, rational, detached, unconventional, idealistic, and eccentric, sometimes inflexible and distant. But when we throw Mars into the sign of Aquarius, here Mars influence works in a rather zany way. Eccentricity is often present, and the energy level is somewhat erratic. Mars in this sign increases originality. A lot of inventors have Mars in Aquarius. There is a natural keenness to explore new ideas and possibilities, so that a fascination with experiment, both with subjects well known to the individual and in totally different areas, is never far from the surface. Perversity, too, is in evidence, apparently. The level of physical energy may not be terribly high, but a kind of tense excitability and nervous energy is present, and that can be expressed physically from time to time when the individual will do daft things, perhaps to raise money for charity. Very Aquarian. This is rewarding for those with this placing, as there is a will to help anyone in need, even when Aquarius is the Mars sign and the humanitarian qualities of the sign make their presence felt. In love, Mars in Aquarius type will want to experiment, and an element of restlessness may also be evident. So very interesting placement of Mars in Aquarius. And we have the last sign, the 12th sign of the zodiac being Pisces. What can we expect from this most mysterious, the least researched sign of Pisces, being the last sign? Is like, it's about the closures and leaving this life. Piscean energy is very enigmatic, beautiful, intangible. As I said, least researched, okay? And also we obviously could have Mars placed in Pisces, which will be very interesting placement. But let's see how we can combine these two energies. So Pisces. From the archetype point of view, when we look at Pisces, this is very strongly associated with necessary process of disintegration before a new cycle begins. So it's about saying goodbye, it's about closures, the endings, the 12th sign of the zodiac belt. Pisces is concerned with non-discrimination and non-attachment to material life and material possessions. With Pisces, everything is relative. Nothing has a clearly defined boundary. Being a water sign, Pisces experiences life on an instinctive, intuitive and imaginative level, creative level. It has a mutable mode, which means that it's inclined towards restlessness and divine discontent. Being negative in polarity, that I've touched on before, its expression is also inward looking and reflective. So with the negative polarity, meaning being very introverted and hidden rather than outgoing. Planets in Pisces do not act in direct ways. Now think about Mars. Mars obviously is direct. Mars is very much like I jump in, take action, my drive, my inner willingness, my inner strength, my life force. But in Pisces, this is not direct, okay? So Mars will not act in very direct ways, prefers a more subtle route, and often it doesn't have any defined goal or target. So Mars in Pisces it's not a great placement. It will feel a little bit uncomfortable in this sign. Pisces is opposite Virgo in the zodiac, and we might associate both of them with the idea of service and devotion to a higher cause, as well as self-sacrifice and altruism. Now look at this. Virgo is very practical. It achieves this through being humble and by practical means, So Virgo wants to be of service to others on a very practical level, whilst Pisces will often devote itself to a religious or spiritual cause and an ideal. It also wants to be of service to others, but on a spiritual level. Both these signs desire perfection. Virgo through sorting wheat from chaff and through the development of skill and the refinement of the body, and Pisces through escape from worldly duties and earthly considerations. So the keywords for Pisces energy would be compassionate, receptive, psychic, sentimental, unfocused, sometimes submissive, sensitive, imaginative, dreamy, selfless. So when we put Mars in the sign of Pisces, what this combination brings. Here, Mars increases the emotional energy and contributes a rather lower level of physical energy than when placed in most other signs. But if the emotions can be channeled positively, those with Mars in Pisces will achieve much. It is a marvelous placing for those who enjoy physical activity which is essentially creative, such as skating, dancing. And indeed, it is advisable for those with a Piscean Mars to consider taking up something along these lines. It's the best possible way for them to enjoy exercise, creative ways, or spiritual ways. Mars in Pisces works well from the love point of view, as here there is a kind sensitivity and a sensuous quality that combine well in warm and attractive expression. Understanding of the partner's needs will be instinctive. So it is a beautiful placement, even though it doesn't have to give you this extensive inner drive and willfulness or fighting for what you believe, etc. It will be more passive, a little bit more withdrawn, but still it can obviously be expressed in certain ways. So let's bear in mind, even though you may sometimes have a strong Mars or a weak Mars in your chart, it doesn't really matter because we all have Mars in our charts, just like every other planet, and we can always work with it. So once you know what it is, what sign it is in, what house it is in, and what aspects it has in between other planets, that's when you can take this energy and really work with it, rather than pushing in a certain direction and observing no results. You can actually coin this energy and push it in a completely different direction, and then you will see the results. So that's why it is quite essential, I think, to really get to know your chart. You can either download it for free from some websites like astro.com that I use for my work, or there are other like Solar Fire, apps that you have to pay for, etc., which I also use. But once you do have your chart, you can always have a look at these placements, or you can obviously consult a professional astrologer to get this knowledge combined so that you can have it in your report and you know how to use it. So either way, I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.